Panettone is an Italian Christmas tradition. The exact origins are debatable, but one story is that it was invented by a Milanese nobleman who wanted to marry a baker's daughter. The baker was impressed, and the couple was allowed to marry. Some delicious folklore to ponder while you enjoy this festive dessert. Panettone is to Italians what shortbread is to the Scottish. A tantalizingly sweet holiday dessert. It wouldn't be Christmas without it. It can take 2 or more days to make an authentic panettone, where these ingredients are used to create the domed sweet bread that's fluffy inside. The process starts by measuring out the ingredients for 24 loaves, beginning with high-protein flour, which is tipped into an industrial dough mixer. After which, yeast, milk powder, and enough water to bind the ingredients are also added. A safety cage is placed over the dough mixer, which is then set to work blending the ingredients. As it does, gluten forms, and it's this which will give the panettone its structure. Sugar is added. This will feed the growth of the yeast. Meanwhile, eggs are cracked and the yolks are separated from the whites. The yolks are weighed and then added to the mix. This recipe calls for egg yolks only, which provide fat to help emulsify the dough and give it flavor. To further enrich the flavor, a generous amount of butter is added, which is then folded into the dough. After being thoroughly mixed, the dough is moved to a container where it's left to rise for 11 hours. This is called proofing the dough. The dough undergoes multiple proofings, but in between each, the dough is deflated and returned to the mixer. During proofing, the yeast consume the sugar, so more is added to feed the process once again. More of the other ingredients are also added, and the mixer kneads them into the dough for an hour. As it does, it creates bands of elasticity, so the dough will stretch as it rises. In the final mixing stage, vanilla extract is added. As this is being mixed in, the fruits for the panettone are measured out. This recipe calls for 2 parts raisins, 1 part candied orange pieces, and 1 part candied lemon, which are then added and mixed into the dough. After another proofing, the fruited dough mixture is sliced into chunks, each weighing 1.1 kilograms. During baking, some of the water in the dough will evaporate, and the panettone should end up weighing just 1 kilogram. Next, each chunk is shaped into a uniform mound, which are then left to rise for an hour in a warm chamber. This is the 4th proofing. Instead of metal pans, the panettone will be baked in these paper molds that will also become part of the final packaging. After an hour, the dough chunks have doubled in size. These are then worked into a round form, before being transferred into the paper molds. It's then back into the warming chamber for another proofing. As the dough rises, it's contained within the paper molds. After 6 hours, the molds are removed and crosses are cut into the risen dough. And then small knobs of butter are placed in the middle of each cross. After 24 hours of preparation, the panettones are now ready to be baked for 45 minutes at 160 degrees Celsius. Out of the oven, each panettone is speared near its base with a metal rod and then hung upside down, where they're left to cool for 24 hours. This stretches the warm breads to give them their dome shape and prevents them from collapsing inwards. Once cooled, the panettones are ready to be wrapped for sale. Because of the repeated proofing, it's taken 48 hours to make them. All that proofing, though, has allowed the flavors to mature and the fluffy texture to develop. The yeast will act as a preservative, keeping this Italian Christmas bread fresh for up to 30 days. Mind you, it In my kitchen, I'll be lucky if it lasts 30 minutes. Nice.